Hello and welcome to EFD, where today we're looking through some of the summer's biggest deals to see which ones have the chance of going spectacularly wrong. As we've already covered Darwin Nunez in detail, you won't find him here, but these are three more of 2022's riskiest transfer gambles, and we start in Manchester. Lisandro Martinez. Lisandro Martinez is finally a Manchester United player after the Red Devils beat Arsenal to his signature, but Ajax won't be too unhappy with the ultimate nature of the deal. Martinez will cost United around £52 million, eclipsing the price Chelsea paid for Raheem Sterling and making him the third biggest sale in the history of the Eredivisie, trailing only two other former Ajax stars in Matthijs de Ligt and Frenkie de Jong. So looking at the size of the deal, you'd expect that like de Ligt and de Jong, the Argentinian is first, basically a sure thing and guaranteed to add value to the team, and secondly, a unique talent whose contribution could not be replicated by any other cheaper player. The problem is that it's not clear that either one of those things is true. Though reporting on Martinez's arrival has focused on his ability to play at centre-half, left-back and defensive midfield, we don't expect to see him get huge minutes in the latter two spots. United pulled out all the stops to Gesamtleon for fullback Tyrell Malacia, and they still have Telles and Shaw in that slot too. As for midfield, Martinez played just 22 of his 118 games for Ajax there, and in 2021, Erik ten Hag told ESPN, Daley Blind does not have the running capacity to play in midfield, and neither does Martinez. We doubt the last 12 months have changed the coach's mind, and if he wasn't up to it in the Netherlands, it's hard to imagine the Prem will be more favourable to Martinez, leaving centre-back as the most likely location for the 24-year-old. And while United certainly need depth in that department, with Varane missing 46% of available minutes last season, £51 million is a lot to pay for a central defender who may not necessarily be suited to the challenges faced in English football. As football writer Grace Robertson has pointed out, 41 footballers played more than half the available minutes at centre-back in the Prem last term, and the shortest of those was 5'11" in Burnley's Ben Mee. Martinez is well below that at 5'9", and last year won 55% of his aerial duels, putting him in the bottom 20% of defenders. But even if you're comforted by watching his highlights, which admittedly do showcase an excellent leap and impressive physicality, his height is still something he has to consider when dealing with a larger forward, making life more complicated for him before he even starts. And even the publicity around this fact could hurt United. Though the average PL and Eredivisie teams both attempt around 17 crosses a game, we could see sides with larger target men ramp that up to test Martinez's response. And even one high-profile error could quickly knock the player's confidence and hurt the fans' trust in him. Just ask Harry Maguire, roundly booed by United supporters during the club's pre-season tour. And before you bring up Martinez's performance against Dortmund in the Champions League, where he was widely credited with shutting down Erling Haaland in a 4-0 victory for Ajax, it's worth noting that the Norwegian got off 4 shots from inside the box that night, and over 0.5 xG, only fractionally below his usual average of 0.6. In short, there are question marks here. However, we aren't saying this move won't work. Martinez is left-footed and clearly a fantastic passer, with 8 progressive passes and 8 passes into the final third each game, placing him in the top 1% of centre-backs. Ten Hag could also attempt to mitigate the concerns around Martinez's physique by using a back three, reducing the aerial and physical pressure on him, though that would mean Maguire, Varane and Martinez all going straight into the starting 11, leaving very little depth on the bench. But perhaps the club's failure to bolster the midfield is key to understanding this move. So far, only Frenkie de Jong has been credibly linked with a spot in the centre of the park for United. And while they have time to reinforce that position, we may see another campaign without a top-class specialist DM at Old Trafford. That means less protection for the back line and more traffic for the centre-halves, and here Martinez may come into his own, having averaged an excellent 5 tackles and interceptions per 90 last season, as well as boasting over 61% success in the challenges he attempts, good enough to make the top 20% of defenders, and significantly above Maguire at 52% and Varane at 46%. With the ball on the deck, he's a terrier, snapping into challenges and harrying opponents into mistakes, and in these situations, his height becomes an asset, allowing him to turn and accelerate quickly, and perhaps compensating for Maguire's lack of agility. Acting as a hybrid of left centre-back and defensive midfield could get the best out of Martinez, covering for his stamina and stature and highlighting his game reading and technical qualities. Time will tell whether it works out that way, but Ten Hag already has to prove his statement signing was worth the cash. City's rebuild. You wouldn't normally expect a side that has won its 4th title in 5 years to embark on a huge squad overhaul, but Pep Guardiola's Manchester City have never been conventional, and the Spaniard will head into the 2022-23 campaign with a radically different team to last season. Already the citizens have sanctioned the departure of key players like Zinchenko, Jesus, Fernandinho and Sterling, who last season contributed around 6,000 minutes to the club's title charge, and more exits could follow, with Nathan Ake linked away and interest in Bernardo Silva from both Barcelona and Paris Saint-Germain. However, this being City, there have been major acquisitions too. Calvin Phillips, Erling Haaland and Julian Alvarez have arrived to bolster the squad, along with reserve keeper Stefan Ortega, and they are still expected to strengthen at the left-back spot, targeting Brighton's Marc Cucurella. But even if they do bring in the Spaniard, the squad is no bigger than it was last season. An interesting choice given that the Winter World Cup will make this year more grueling than most, and the fact the Premier League has sanctioned the use of 5 subs each game from this summer onwards. Not to mention the injury issues we've seen in players like De Bruyne, Haaland and Phillips. Put simply, Pep could have been a little more risk-averse. But numbers aren't the only factor to consider. The arrival of a conventional forward in Haaland has clearly changed what Pep wants in his wide players, sacrificing inside forward types in favour of creative build-up merchants. Despite playing wide last year, Jesus still got twice as much XG as expected assists per 90, while Sterling got 3 times as much XG, showing that their focus is getting chances themselves. By comparison, Foden's XG was only 1.4 times his XA, while De Bruyne, Silva and Grealish created more than they got themselves, making them a more natural fit as providers to a traditional number 9. The only true exception to the rule is Riyad Mahrez, who was in the same range as Sterling in a sensational campaign in front of goal, and he still plays more passes into the box than anyone except KDB and Cancelo, and creates more chances than everyone but KDB and Grealish. All this makes sense. Pep has acquired one of the best strikers in the world and is building a team designed to funnel the ball to him as regularly as possible. But if Haaland takes a while to settle or gets injured, as he was nearly 40% of the time last year, what happens then? Will the team function with Julian Alvarez up top, or can the creators adjust themselves to become goal scorers when the side is in the pinch? At this point, it's worth remembering that City may not have much of a cushion if things go wrong. Liverpool have undergone their own transformation, sending Sadio Mane to Munich and adding further eggs to the Portuguese league basket with the £68 million signing of Darwin Nunez. But if they start next season in the same form as they finished the previous one, they'll be a frightening prospect. From the end of January to the final day of the season, Liverpool took 2.8 points per game to City's 2.4, went unbeaten while City lost once, and ran neck and neck on XG conceded with Pep's team and only marginally behind them in attack, while reaching the finals of the FA Cup and Champions League. And with Salah missing the World Cup and no AFCON to contend with, their year may be less disrupted than that of the champions. Pep has earned the right to make big decisions, and his track record for solving team issues on the fly is second to none in the global game. But the test of his work this summer will be the destination of the Premier League trophy next May, and if it heads to Merseyside, Pep will only have himself to blame. Nayef Aguerd. Now, we could have put Lewandowski's sale in here or Real Madrid's insane outlay on Aurelien Tchouameni, but flying under the radar has been West Ham's purchase of Nayef Aguerd from Stade de Rennes for close to £32 million, more than proven Premier League contributors like Basuma or Zinchenko, and the same as another Ligue 1 defender Sven Botman, who is 4 years younger than the Moroccan and much more highly rated. Perhaps Aguerd is uniquely suited to the demands of Moyes' defensive scheme, but if so, it's hard to see it in the numbers. After all, Rennes were decent but not outstanding defensively last season, ranking 4th in France for both goals and XG conceded, and it was only Aguerd's second campaign as a regular, meaning that despite his 30th birthday being closer to his 20th, the Irons' new boy has just 89 starts in a top 5 league. If he was bought in for his work on the ball, you could just about see why, but the picture is still much murkier than you'd expect at this price point. Aguerd was second among run players for passes last season and was effective in long balls, hitting close to 15 a match at a very strong 78% clip, and overall finding the targets 90% of the time. But he didn't top the squad in those passes, and when you look at the more valuable kind of balls, like ones into the final thirds, or one which moves the team at least 15 yards upfield, he doesn't come out particularly well either, ranking 7th and 12th at Rennes respectively. Still, he's left-footed, which may appeal to Moyes, and maybe he's a dynamite off the ball. Unfortunately, it doesn't look that way. Aguerd makes around 2.7 tackles and interceptions a game, which is fairly poor for a centre-half, and while that may be down to team tactics, he doesn't shine in the challenges he does attempt, winning just 39% of his tackles, a lower percentage than all of West Ham's regular defenders last season, including unwanted fullbacks Arthur Masuaku and Ryan Fredericks. He also blocks fewer shots than Dawson, Zuma, Johnson and Cresswell, with his only truly outstanding attribute being his aerial prowess, where his 70% win rate outstrips everyone at the London Stadium. However, we'd expect that to drop slightly in a more physical Premier League. We'd be delighted to be wrong about Aguerd. West Ham have shown they can find value in the market, and their success under Moyes has been good for the league and a joy to watch. But for this price point, we think they could be smarter or play it safer. We'll see who's right next year. So that was our scout report on the 3 biggest transfer gambles in the summer market so far. What do you make of our selections? Are we right? Are we wrong? Let us know in the comments down below. As always, make sure you're subscribed to Euro Football Daily, hit the notification bell and like this video, and we'll see you next time.